Tav in the beginning. One time it's translated as past, or the other one is past, the other one's future, this one's future. And I found some verses where one translation says this is past tense, like this already happened, and yet another translation of the exact same verse says this is future tense, this is going to happen. Well, which is it? Well, if the professional scholars and translators can't decide amongst themselves if it's past tense or future tense, how am I supposed to make the choice? I don't know. So when I see the letter Tav at either the beginning or the end, I can think this is either past or future, could be both. Could be both. But it's also the sign of the covenant. If you put a circle around it, that's a tet. I don't mean to do that. Underline. It means it's the sign of the covenant. So if you say Tav Yod, well, the Yod at the end, that means my. And you could say, well, the sign of the covenant of my, that you could say, well, it's almost like I promise. I promise that this is what I'm going to do. I swear to it. And if you have a Tav in front of it, you could say, if it's Tav Shin Mem, is that simply saying the future or past tense of what the Shem is? But you can look up in this dictionary and find that there's many words that start with the letter Tav, because they're actual words. So I don't know whether Tav Shin Mem is a word with its own meaning, or whether Shin Mem is the meaning, and that the Tav references either past tense or future tense. I don't know. So I'm going to consider all those possibilities. So I'm not trying to be restrictive and saying, for example, this dictionary has the Masoretic vowel points, lines and dots. Paleo didn't have lines or dots. You can look at the ancient Leviticus scroll, and it's written with those letters, and there's no dots. Now, some ancient scrolls had dots between the words, and some Greek scrolls had dots between the words, but not all of them.
So, I'm sorry, are the dots the jots and the tittles?
No, the dots between the words are simply to separate the words. We in English have this type of writing where we leave a space. I've seen a copy of a Greek manuscript, there was no spaces between the letters.
So what are the jots and the tittles of the language
Well,
then?
Monty Judah is the only person I know that's done a study on the jots and tittles. I'll show you one if you want. It's a distraction from what we're doing, but I
I'm
think
sorry,
it's very
if we could get back to
No.
Don Aaron's asked me to ask you last night, and I totally
Of
forgot
what,
about
the
it.
jots and tittles?
About the jots and
Okay,
tittles.
well here, let me finish reading this real quick.
Go ahead.
I'm defining the word Ruach HaKodesh here.
Oh, okay.
So, the Holy Spirit, or the word Ruach HaKodesh, if you look at what it really means, this is a way to define the Ruach HaKodesh, which is why I'm saying it's actually the alphabet. The appointed wind, pure expression, designated course, sanctified progression of the path, predetermined gamut. Now, a gamut is from one end to the other. The gamut is like a scale. In fact, the solfeggio tones wasn't do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, but it was the first one was ut, as in the word gamut, which is a Latin word meaning here's the course, and Rico Cortez talks about, then Horowitz talks about that. It's the solfeggio tones is a whole other thing. But that's the word ut, or gamut, where we get the, it's replaced with the word do. But anyway, the predetermined gamut, or the authenticated interpretation of the words expressed by the speaker, which would be the creator, as they were meant by himself, which is his subjective point of view, not just ours to turn around, retranslate, or re-render them, to be rendered in their clearest form, transferring the message of his personal heart, which he longed to express in no better form than these words. In other words, he could have had 52 letters. He could have had 1 letter. He could have had 14 letters. He could have had, I think in Hawaii they have 14 letters, or 17, something like that. Smaller group. But he chose 22 letters. How do I know he chose 22 letters? Because there's 22 letters. And I'm assigning my given fundamental premises. These are what we've inherited. Now there's 2 forms of the letter ayin in the ancient way. The other one, not just an eyeball, but was like this wick or this twisted rope. Jeff Benner talks about that, and some people suggest that there was another meaning of the ayin, but the fact is, ayin means ayin. There wasn't ever another meaning other than the ayin, so you might think, well, if the ayin is like these tipped scales, maybe one of them had to do with if the scales tip this way or the scales tip that way. Maybe, conjecture, but the point is, everybody agrees there was these 22 letters, but the Masoretic scribes apparently have these final forms, and as far as I know, nobody knows who came up with those. Did Daniel come up with those? Did the middle-aged scribes come up with those? I don't know. Are they on the most ancient scribes found in Qumran from Ezra? We don't have scrolls that far back. You know, the only ones were, some of them found around 2000 and I mean, 2,000 years ago, at 0 AD, and some of them are maybe 100 years back, but apparently we haven't found modern scrolls going back that far. They found some Isaiah scrolls. They have things from David and Solomon's era, but that's about 900 to 1000 BC, but those are all in Paleo.
And they
So-
don't have finals.
No finals in Paleo.
When did finals start?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure. I'm not
Oh.
sure when they started, but they're certainly used now.
Yeah.
So now here's another thing. We'll address this real quick. Why those final letters? The word final is the word soph or sophit, and it means that which is sucked up or that's absorbed. The word Yosef, I think we talked about this
Yeah.
yesterday a little bit,
Yeah.
right? The word sophit meaning at the end, or once everything is said and done, that's the word sophit. So we in English have capital letters, what we put in the beginning. These are kind of like capital letters, but they drop down below. Why would they be at the end?
We have Sophie.
In English,
Yeah,
sophit letters?
we do.
What are
You
they?
can, like when I was in school, that's a cursive T.
Uh-huh.
So is this. Only at the end of the word.
No, yeah, that's true.
We never learned that one. I thought that was just somebody's
Well, you're
slang.
just a young thing, see?
I remember seeing people write like that.
Who writes like that nowadays?
What's
Yeah.
that?
I remember
Uh-huh.
doing that.
And then if you look at the Congress of the United States and all those old English things, all those big documents,
Oh, yeah, the long S
the,
and
the
yeah.
F's in the middle of the word, those are medials, and when they're at the end of the word, they're the S.
Yeah.
So in English, we have them. Some of them have fallen off, and there's an R that's an internal R. I can't even write it because I never adopted that one, but it's kind of a, that's really not what it looks like.
Well, my wife's from Australia, and she has this totally weird looking R that looks like an X, and it might be that thing.
Yeah, I bet it is. And it's an internal R, right? She doesn't use it at the end.
Well, her name's Karen, so it falls right in the middle.
Right in the middle. It's a medial R. It's not it's not a final R, and that's the.
Well, so see, language morphs. It goes through
It does morph.
permutations and it
That's
changes.
exactly.
So Moses and it tracked a lot of these things. But
Yeah.
so to go back and look at this is to say, okay, you have to. This is such a huge subject.
Yes.
We can run off on tangents all over the place. And so this is just a matter of trying to focus in on something about it so we can get somewhere. So,
Yeah, I didn't mean to get you off
no,
track.
I'm
I
not
never did that about the
criticizing you, I'm
finals.
saying that it's linguistics,
It's big.
excuse me. Now, here's another thing I'll throw out before we get to the sophites. The word for ascribe is a sofer.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Samic pei is, or Samic vav pei is soph, like the word suf, which is that which absorbs and that which comes at the end. But sofer, the F phonetic is like the PH is our letter P, it's the letter pei. Well, sofer, change that to a P and it's super, or soup, and that which absorbs. And it's like, well, what super, that's like Superman. Well, if you look at the other words in the dictionary for Samic vav pei, or Samic vav pei resh, it's where you get the word soprano. Super, it's where you get the word uber, which is like the best, extreme. And you go, wait a minute, embedded within this language is telling you that the highest concern, the greatest thing anybody can do on the face of the earth is to study being a scribe of the language. It's like, now, why is that? It's above all else. The word soprano, the one who sings highest above everybody else is the high soprano. Superman, uber, and it's like, there's a few other words too, and you go, but that's being a scribe. You can't be a scribe unless you learn the shape of the letters, and you copy the letters one by one. You can't scramble the letters, because then you're being a bad scribe, and scribes, even in the Jewish scribes, boy, every time, in past, I don't know what they do now, but every time they wrote the word Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, they had to break their pen and throw it away and get another one. If they wrote the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh on a piece of paper, you can't throw it away or drop it on the ground. And you know what I do with the name and write it, and here it's like they probably would be abhorred.
They'd cry.
What I did.
Can I talk about that?
Sure.
I also heard that Sefer is counted. And so.
Sefer. That's
Sefer.
defined right here. Here's the word bean, and here's the word sefer.
Okay, and so counted, then it took me back to the Masoretic text where every letter was counted, every word, and every line, and every
Where you get
page.
gematria.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Okay.
But I'll tell you,
But
go ahead.
so a Sefer Torah, I know it's a book Torah. It's a
Sefer, Torah.
Sefer Torah. Isn't that the book Torah instead of the
It's the
scroll
same word for
Torah?
book.
Yeah, okay, so it's the same word, that, and instead of the scroll Torah. And,
The
but,
scroll is a sefer. The book is a sefer and a scroll is a sefer. In fact,
Okay,
the word
they
for
both the
library
same.
also comes out of sefer.
interesting.
I'll show you one more thing about sefer. Here's an interesting thing. Now, I heard the other day that apparently somebody said, Josephus said, that when Abraham went down to Egypt, he talked to them and taught them about astronomy. I'd never heard that before.
Interesting.
However, if you go back to Genesis, I think it's Genesis Bereshit 15, this word sefer is used. Yahweh told Abraham that he was going to have descendants. And Abraham was kind of complaining, well, I don't have any descendants.
Yeah, I'm old.
And Yahweh says, step outside. And he says, just take a look at the heavens. He said, sefer the stars.
Oh,
Now then it says, if you're able.
yeah.
Now we can look at that and say, there's no way. Abraham can't count the stars. We even have telescopes. We try to count the stars with computers, but they found that the better telescopes you get, even what they thought was black space with nothing there, with these super telescopes, they found more stars in the black area than they can in the visible area. And it's like, there's no way you can count the stars. Okay, now you jump to the book of Hebrews, and it says, Abraham is the father of our faith. He's the model. Just like Abraham was told to do something which he couldn't do, but yet he believed, so we were told to do something that we can't do by keeping the Torah, and all we do is believe, and because he's the model of our faith, we're in, just like he was in. It was accredited to him for righteousness because he believed. Wait a minute. What was Abraham told to do? Sefer the stars. This is the word Samik Peresh. Sefer the stars. Count the stars. Wait a minute. What does the word sefer mean? Count. This is what the Red Dictionary says. Count, number, tell, narrate. To shape hair is a barber. It's a letter, it's a document, a book, a writing, enumeration, census, it's a border, a frontier. To set a fence is sefer. Sephironic tree of life, where they have like a constellation, where you have 10 dots that they draw lines between. Of course, that's Kabbalistic, but that's why they call it the Sephironic tree.
Yeah.
Fence posts and enclosure, a fence line connecting. It's a figure, it's where we get the word cipher, which is to decrypt something that's then encoded, to digitize, and it's simply the word for literary.